Howdy ho, folks. Trollface here. So I've kind of got my ass goblineries within the conduct of just talking about this recent kind of peace broker that's happened between Israel and Hamas, some of those types of affairs within it. So I figured, a peace broker within some of these type of aspects, got to put my 2 cents in. A peace broker within these aspects, got to put my 2 cents in as far as these affairs going to happen. The particular fair about this, I'm sure you look after it, this seems like it's pretty ripe for like the conduct of something in like a spoof type fair, not to say within those conducts as far as poking fun to that extent, realizing it is a serious issue within these pitches, but the antics about it kind of have their aspects as far as just wondering what's going on here. That's kind of the conduct. So thus I feel like saying something within these pitches just to kind of not so much heckle within those aspects, but just kind of wonder if other folks are noticing this as well as far as these pitches can happen. Because yeah, it just me being a meme onslaught as far as these pitches can happen, just tend to notice these things. But particularly, there's some civilians that got killed as far as these aspects. There's some recent Palestinians that got killed in the ceasefire as far as these aspects going to happen. And the signs point to the fact that the reasons why those civilians were killed, despite the fact of like the agreement being said, is because some of these civilians crossed the withdrawal line, which in war talk that basically means the boundaries as to where you can go before there's problems. So I look after here within those conducts. The information about that as to why that particular happened was kind of here and there within those pitches, but apparently it had something to do with possibly them wanting to get back to their homes or something alike. And I just question, this is just glaring within these aspects. Why are these folks going past the withdrawal line after all that carnage of the past 2 years? It's just kind of like within the pitch as far as saying this feels like some of these type folks is kind of a glutton for punishment. Now I realize if they don't know what's going on, maybe they didn't realize about a withdrawal line, but if those soldiers did give them a warning, if those soldiers did give those people a particular kind of warning, I don't think they shot them first thing. So it's kind of the pitch. It's not, you have to pick up on the placement of paying attention to those warnings. Not to say like I know whether or not that happened within those pitches, but it just, the encounterment kind of feels within, kind of question as to why that ordeal kind of manifested. Say to those civilians, go buy slash find some nachos or soft drinks, some of those stuff there. It's kind of like going back to an active beehive after you got away from it as far as this can happen. If you get away from one of those types of situations, it's kind of conduct, all right. You think those folks, at least in my troll face systems, probably say, yeah, I'm going to Cuba as far as those fairs can happen. I'm going to find some restaurant, some of those type fairs. Now, it may be one thing if there's kind of like a circular kind of boundary where you're trapped in like this bubble or circle or something like that, but it pretty much would seem within the aspect of saying I'm going in the opposite direction of this crap that I just had to deal with. But then on top of that, the particular aspect is just as far as saying that apparently, like Hamas or some of these type of folks are kind of having like a snafu as far as handing over the bodies, as far as these pitches kind of happen, not really coming through on their side of the agreement as far as handing over like the remnants of like the war as far as those pitch kind of not to say it like that, but within the pitches like the bodies of like what particularly happened, the hostages as far as those affairs going to happen. It just makes you question what the argument is about handing over the deceased. If the war is over and they're not mad that you killed them, you would think that they would be bringing those folks over in like a semi if that's all you had to do to consign on your particular side of the agreement. I recognize there may be a certain degree of work not wanting to go dig out throughout the rubble and pitches like that, but you also just wouldn't get why they just don't say, here's where they are, you do it. That's kind of the territory as far as they're just, it's just kind of strange the caginess that goes along with that conduct as far as the fair is going to happen. Where if they don't want those people to go on that territory and dig themselves, then why they're having the gripe about having to do it either. It's kind of within the pitch as far as saying it's just kind of the conduct, wondering what the fight is over about the particular area of the land as far as just trying to get that territory back or getting those particular situations back from the fair. It's not now obviously the respect nodule to talk about this within those conducts. Some folks are kind of particular about talking about the deceased within those forums, but it's just kind of the pitch as far as saying it kind of feels within the aspect as far as saying they're kind of making it more of an obtrusive kind of territory more so than it really needs to be. It's just kind of the conduct. Give them a map and say this is the conduct about it, and that's what you have to do. It just kind of kind of feels like more or less this consistent gripe within those aspects that doesn't really have to have all that kind of notoriety about it as far as those pitches going to happen. It would seem like there would be means to be able to have like those situations as far as giving them their request as far as those fares going to go. But then there's the next thing as far as those fares going to happen, which basically deals with the product saying, what is the point in installing like the food trucks after the ceasefire? It seems also on the Israel side of things that they've been stalling the food trucks going into Gaza as far as those pitches can happen. It makes you question what the point is to stalling those food trucks after the what's the point in stalling those food trucks after the ceasefire as far as those pitches can happen? You would think that that should have been in the first. You would kind of think that that should have been the first agreement in the ceasefire, saying food is required. It's kind of part of the aspect as far as saying when you buy a home, usually one of the first things you do about it is either buy furniture or buy food. And that's kind of the product. Doesn't seem like much of a ceasefire if you're going to be at peace, but you're not going to get any food. That seems like that should have been ironed out pretty immediately. It doesn't make much sense of like a ceasefire otherwise, I'd say, within those aspects. This kind of makes you question if those folks are supposed to eat like caterpillars or snails, something like that within those ordeals. And it's not to say within the product. I mean, the ceasefire has like it's definitely heavyweight this particular situation within the aspects kind of it, but it just feels like that's pretty much like a real whip crack of a situation within those ordeals. If the aspect behind you're basically at peace, but you don't have any food, it's not the situation behind the parameters of like a ceasefire is really not that kind of like doesn't seem that thorough if you're not getting kind of more food within the product of it, kind of more or less within the first place. So it's just kind of fair to something to pay attention to. It's my standard trollings, pitches like that. You can say, you mad, bro? It's what I do. Troll face. I get crunk. Some of these type aspects, I'm probably about to go do that within the next few moments and just kind of say something to pay attention to within the aspects of just what's going on here. So just a little bit of healthy popcorn for you to kind of smoke and then be like, WTF.